If there's a conflict, if we just continue to sweep it under the rug, so to speak, or keep pushing it to the side, eventually that conflict's going to come up again. Here's what I know. I know that if we don't resolve a conflict that can be resolved, eventually the conflict will arise again in some form, in some way. One of the conflicts that I see in so many families is cell phones. Cell phones are a huge problem in a lot of couples. They can't even go on a date night unless their face is in front of a cell phone. They're texting. They're on Facebook. They're on the internet. And so when they're on a date night, supposed to be spending quality time together, somebody's face is in a phone. And I've found that almost every couple that walks into my office, they're having problems with someone or one of them being on the cell phone. So this is a solvable conflict. And when we bring that conflict up and we state our problem and state the conflict, then what we have to do is we have to follow through. We have to find a resolution. Most people don't listen in the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. How many times, and I may be speaking to myself here, I don't know how many times I'm hearing someone talk and the entire time they're speaking to me, I'm thinking about what my response is going to be or about what I want to say. Because isn't the thing that I want to say more important? What I've got to say is very important. So I wish they would hurry up and get done so I could tell them what I'm thinking, and we don't hear them. And so our intent needs to be on listening and instead of focusing on speaking. To resolve a conflict well, couples will need to listen well. Listening is part of communication. So communication is not just speaking, communication is listening. And probably one of my weaker points as well, along with patience, is listening. I always have something important to say. I wake up every morning thinking that what I have to say is the most important. But listening is incredibly handy when you come into communicating. When a person hears something that he does not agree with, he will put up an interruption. Interruptions come in many, many different forms. There's 3 interruptions that I want you to see, though. You can name many. One of them is this: negative body language. Because body language speaks more sometimes than our words. It's important that when someone's communicating to us that we focus. Body language is huge. And I'll watch body language in session. When a couple comes in, I'll watch their body language and I'll even address it at times. I'll say, why did you do that? And I'll ask them that because I can see a person, when one person says one thing, I can see the look on the spouse and I can tell you whether they agree with it or not. Because it's just automatic. So the second thing, one of them is body language. The second one, interruption, is butting in. An interruption that we have when someone's talking, and my wife could probably tell you this, I probably am the world's worst when it comes to her telling me something, trying to butt in, because remember, we've got something important to say. But you know what you're communicating to the other person is that what you have to say is more important than what they're telling you. And so we butt in. And what that does is it puts an interruption up, because if they're trying to communicate something to you and they need you to hear them completely through, because I don't know how many times my wife has told me something or telling me something and I butt in and finish her sentence and that's not even what she was saying. But it puts an interruption up and I can't hear everything that she's telling me. So sometimes I butt in and she goes, and she has tried to stop, and at times she has stopped and not even finished. And I'm like, no, go ahead, I'll promise, I'll be quiet this time. Let you finish. And I find out that when she finishes, it has nothing to do with what I was thinking she was getting ready to say. 3 types of interruption. Number 3, thinking of what you're going to say instead of listening. So instead of listening, maybe you're not butting in yet. Maybe you haven't caused that interruption, but you're sitting there thinking about what you're going to say next. And we put an interruption up and we don't hear them completely. There's 3 methods of conflict resolution. Is the number one thing that I believe is that we need to create a time and a place. for resolution. There's some times that I believe that are not good. You can probably come up with more, but this is what I've come up with for now, is right before you go to bed is not a good time for resolution. And when I mean that, I don't mean placing time in there where you got an hour or so before you go to bed. I'm talking about at the moment you're getting ready to go to bed, lay down and sleep. You got to get up early, and you want to fight. You want to resolve your conflict. Not a good time. You don't have the time to do it. And usually when that happens, it goes into an hour. Sometimes if it's a really bad one, it goes to 2 hours. And the next thing you know, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You got to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock and go to work. You're going to have a really, really bad day. The second thing is right before you go into a restaurant. Maybe some of this is on it by experience. Don't start a conflict resolution right before you go into a restaurant, especially if you're meeting someone. Sometimes when that happens, things won't go well with your meeting with someone. Here's the thing with conflict resolution. We need to be heard and understood, both of us. And when we do that, it's going to take a little bit of time. Most conflict's going to take a little bit of time. So the third thing is times that are not good is right before church. Because you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to church. I'm getting ready to go worship God. I'm getting ready to be in relationship with all the community. And on the way to church, we start our conflict. Oh, by the way, we need to take care of this. Well, how much time do you have? Most of you live in the vicinity of this church right here. You travel maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You're not going to resolve anything in 10 to 15 minutes. Things that are not good for resolution, or times that are not good for resolution, is right before you leave for work. Right before you leave for work. Makes for a miserable day. You cannot solve things right before you go to work. And then you try to solve it through text. And let me tell you this, conflict should never be solved through text. You cannot read emotions. You get to work and you're trying to text, you're trying to fix it, it doesn't work. He said that wrong. I think he meant that different. He meant that different, and we're all just assuming everything. And there's places that are not appropriate for resolution. Another place is in a restaurant. Not a good place to resolve conflict. Those people don't want to hear your junk. They don't want to hear all your dirty laundry. They don't want to hear all your junk. Another place that's not good and appropriate for resolution is in front of company. In front of company, especially if it's family. Listen to me. Your sibling will probably take your side. Her sibling will probably take their side. You start triangulating company into this. You heard her, you heard him. Did you not hear what they said? We start triangulating them in. We want approval. Not in front of companies, not a good place. The fourth one is when the kids are present. The kids are an interruption. They are no help to your conflict resolution. Kids cannot help you. And sometimes we even triangulate our kids into those conversations, trying to get a child on our side. Another place that's not appropriate for resolution is at work. Not a good place to try to conflict resolve, right? So the last one, very important, during date night. Date night is not a time for conflict resolution. Date night is used for face-to-face time. You spend most of your time side by side with your spouse. You go to work, you go to church, you take care of the kids, you go see grandkids. You're doing life together side by side. Date night is face-to-face time. This is the time when you spend face-to-face with them and everything is about you and your mate. It's a time when you talk about your hopes, your dreams. Share things. It's not a time to solve conflict. There's 3 methods of conflict resolution. We talk about one. The second one is to develop a non-attacking plan for communication. If you want things to go well in your conflict resolution, it is best that you find a non-attacking way to do it. So we're going to look at 2. You've heard this before. You say use the you statements. When you use the you statements, they become attacking. Now there's another way to use this, which is the I statements. This is just tools. These are tools that you hear in every counseling setting. You can find this on the internet, but I just threw these in here because this is important, how we use our words in conflict resolution. You say things like, I feel, or I didn't think of that, or I understand it to be this. And so those two, one's attacking, one's a non-attacking. Here's another attacking method, and it's a non-verbal statement. We talked about that earlier. There's a lot of non-verbal statements. Now watch this. Here's the attacking. Rolling of the eyes, flailing the arms, loud sighs. These are attacking non-verbal statements. But there are those that are non-verbal statements that are non-attacking, which is calm. Focused eye contact is negotiate for a resolution. Negotiate. You know, negotiation is whenever the two sit down together in a conflict, whoever has stated that conflict, usually the person who has the conflict, this has really upset you and you bring that conflict to your mate, you probably have a want that you need in that. You probably have a resolution, probably have something that you want to see out of this conflict. Conflict resolution can be one of the toughest things that you're challenged with because it looks messy. And when we get in this marital dance, we have to learn when we see this dance getting ready to happen that if we don't stop it and work towards a solution, that somebody's going to get hurt. But I'm talking about hurt emotionally. Our marriage is going to be in that category of the disasters because it's very negative. Stop the dance before it gets too far and start the process of conflict resolution. And think about the other person and communicate clearly. And when we're communicating clearly, the other person needs to stop talking, listen, and hear and understand. I don't have to agree with you. I just have to hear you. So when I hear and understand you, and then you can come back and say what you think, and I hear and understand you, then it's mutual understanding instead of misunderstanding.